Hello and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do a follow-up video really to the last two vlogs that we've put out for you, particularly around the state of the motorhome market right now and what we are seeing as we've been out and about. Now, as you probably know, we are on the hunt and doing our research for our next motorhome. So we've spent quite a bit of time on a number of dealer forecourts and showrooms, talking to the sales staff and teams and getting a feel for what is happening out there. And there are some changes and shifts coming through. So I want to today really talk to you with a little bit of analysis and an evaluation, if you like, of dealers, their prices, the reductions and what stock they have. Because people are talking about a bubble bursting. But I like to think of this at the minute as possibly a bit of rebalancing. And the question I have in my mind is this getting back to a pre-pandemic market state? Or does this cut a little bit deeper right now, given the inflationary costs and pressures we've had, not only on the dealers themselves, but also on the manufacturers in putting some of these new vehicles out. So I want to talk firstly about some of the trends that we are seeing. So across the piece and looking at probably a dozen dealers that we've either explored on the internet or visited in physical form on their forecourts, there are some trends. Now, there is a sign, and talking to dealers, that a possible decline was starting to set in during 2023. And as a result, there are a lot of 2023 models sitting on dealers' forecourts and in stock. And generally, they're offering good reductions on those because they've now got their chain of 2024 models and stock being passed down. So they don't want to be sitting on 2 years' worth of models and stock. There are a lot of available on site and in stock vehicles from dealers now, so they are in plentiful supply. So if you know what you are looking for specifically, you can generally hunt down the vehicle somewhere because they are out there. And there is that evident price rise that's sitting across a lot of new motorhomes, but that again isn't without some discounts on 2024 models, mainly because they're sitting on the stock. Now, there does seem to be a lot of auto sleepers out there on the Peugeot and Mercedes. Now, the Mercedes is a more expensive base vehicle. The Peugeot cabs on those auto sleepers, they are an aging and dated cab. So I do wonder if that is having an impact because they are looking and feeling older compared to the Ducato counterparts that have moved on in its last form. Now, Eldis are sitting on quite an oversupply across dealers, both in Eldis and the dealer special forms. They've all been passed down to the dealers. There are hundreds of models sitting on forecourts right now, both in the motorhome and camper van specs. And Bailey have quite a few of their run-out autographs across the piece because they now are not being built. They finished building them some time ago. They've now been removed from the Bailey website. And they are now in the archive section of that. But there are quite a plentiful supply of the 79 40s and I's and some of the 81 models sitting on dealer forecourts. But the big thing you all need to pay attention to, I guess, is the variability in pricing. So there are a number of new models out there on forecourts across the UK, but there's quite a variance in the pricing for like specification and models. So I think there's some shopping around to be done, and there's possibly some deals to be had when there is this difference out there and like for like comparables, which we perhaps haven't seen as easily in the last 2 or 3 years. So what I'm going to do for you is go through a number of the dealers and have a look at what they've got and what they're offering. I'll drop some screenshots in as well from their current websites, just so you can get a look and feel of the situation out there right now, because I think the summary of this will be that we are seeing some price levelling, some reductions, some deals to be done, but how will that look when you're on the forecourt trying to do the deal? So let's have a look what's out there and let's have a look at what the dealers are offering. So I'm going to start with Granthams caravans. Now Granthams expanded, I think it was almost 2 years ago. They took over Caravans UK up in Retford to become 2 sites in that North Midlands, South Yorkshire region. Now Granthams have not traditionally been in a big motorhome space. They dealt in some second-hand ones during the pandemic, but with taking on Caravans UK up in Retford, they did get access to a motorhome dealer, but also a motorhome rental site as well, as they used to rent out Swift motorhomes. So at Granthams at the minute, they're offering up to £6,000 off a range of Volkswagen campers. These seem to be in real plentiful supply right now, and they're up to £7,000 off motorhomes, ranging from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to £7,000 off. And an example here is a Moto Trek, which is a relatively new motorhome brand to the UK. They're normally in the space for equine horse box trailers and things, but they have broken into the motorhome market. And there's a 2023 model there at Granthams at the minute with £7,000 off, and likewise £7,000 off a Leisure Trek camper, again, which is a 2023 model. Now, interestingly, they're also sitting on a number of ex-Swift rentals, the Escape models on 2019 plates, which have been for sale for some time. They're just sitting flatly in their showroom, and that isn't a unique position. I'll come on to those when I talk about other dealers. Now, next on the list is Todds Motorhomes. Now, it's not a local dealer for us because it's up Preston Way in the northwest. We've only tuned into their website mainly because we follow Bob Earnshaw and his travels, and he's recently swapped out his motorhome for a new Contiki. So if you're looking for a relatively famous Swift Contiki Sport that's for sale, look no further than Todds right now. But they do have some used prices with reductions of up to £5,000. But they are a dealer that seems to have a steady turnover of stock in both their new and used market. And they are also including up to £4,000 off some of their new model stock, including Swift and Roller Team. So we are seeing both used and new from Todds. So let's have a quick look at Cyland. Now, Cyland are a car superstore. I did do a review of a 4 Series Voyager not long ago from there. And when I was talking to the salesman when I visited that site, he explained that in the whole year to that point back in March, I think they'd sold 30-something motorhomes across the last year. So it wasn't even one a week. Now, they have at least half a dozen ex-Swift rentals, those Escape models, but I have to say again, they've been sat there for over 12 months. They've not moved. They have dozens and dozens of Volkswagen and Camper Kings, extremely full forecourt, and they do have a selection of used motorhomes, but again, not seeing as we drive past it most days of the week, don't seem to be selling a lot of those either. Now, I'll talk about White Archers while I'm here because they're based in Rushden as well. As you know from that previous video, they are now under Spinney's group. So they probably have around 20 or so used motorhomes on site. And again, most of them have been there for some months now as we've been backwards and forwards as we've been doing this search for our next motorhome. I have to say, I think it's probably a sign of why White Archers has ended up where it is, not just this situation with the parent group. But I guess cutbacks within that group probably have taken its toll over time because some of those motorhomes are not in the best condition. There is some damage on some of them, there is work needing to be done, but they're sat there on sale in that condition, and there is evidence here that they're not cleaning them. They've just thrown them on the forecourt, so they don't present well as used vehicles. And as we've done, each time we've gone with the hope that they might have some new availability, or they've got a reasonable used one that might appeal, we just end up walking away. And customer service has been lacking for some time. There's no reductions evident over at White Archers. But some of those motorhomes, a bit like Brownhills, do seem overpriced for what they are compared to others in the market when you just do a little Auto Trader search. There's not a large choice of new, so they've got limited models that can supply to you at the moment. I suspect that again has been a sign of where that company has been. At the minute, it's not worth the drive there unless there's a particular model you are looking for. But it's not particularly appealing in terms of price or range right now. So let's talk about Heart of England motorhomes. This is one that you may not know of. This is a smaller dealer who I had the pleasure of engaging with a few months ago when I did the vlog on the Voyager 540 and the Escape 640, when I took a little drive over there back in February half term. Now, they are a smaller dealer. They picked up half of the Swift franchise when White Archers gave it up. And at the minute, they have got up to £4,000 off some of the new Swift models, but they are 2023 stock. Now, that is compared to the same discount that some dealers elsewhere are giving at the minute on their 2024 stock. So that could struggle. They are a smaller dealer, but they are throwing a couple of £1,000s off some of their used models that they do have. But some of that used stock has been sitting around for a few months now. What I will say, they are a very engaging, very open, very honest dealer. And I had a very good conversation about possibilities of lining up our next new motorhome and what the realistic timelines would be. Very helpful, very knowledgeable. If the right vehicle was available, I wouldn't hesitate in dealing with them. But it just doesn't seem to be that way right now, being a smaller dealer and what they take in. Hit them up if you've not seen them. They've got a really neat website. They're also a Corrado dealer, so it is worth a look if you've not done so. So let's go on to Brownhills. This is the big daddy of motorhome dealers, and our current motorhome, our Auto Trail Tracker, came from Brownhills, but we bought that at a time when there wasn't a good supply of vehicles, and we got a good deal on one that they happened to have in from one of the NEC shows. However, Brownhills are sitting on a lot of new stock, and one of the salesmen there was talking to us about how much they have bought in and have had to pay for up front and been invoiced for. So they've got a lot of new vehicles sitting around their site, filling up a lot of their forecourt and car parking space, as well as an absolutely packed showroom. So you cannot move on their forecourts for both the new and the used. Now, that includes a large stock of used, but I do feel when you look across the market, they are comparably expensive against others in the UK when you look like for like. There is a Bailey Autograph on there, for example, on a 2019 69 plate that they're asking almost £62,000 for, where there are comparables to that elsewhere on Auto Trader and around the UK for the low to mid 50s. And there's also an example of a Contiki Grand Prix model, which is a Loudon special, that they're selling at a year old for 99,000, when at the minute at Loudon's you can go and pick up a brand new one for that same money. So I think their used prices are probably a little bit out of kilter with what the true market should be. Now, There are up to £5,000 off in reductions over a number of models across their forecourt, and I'll put some screenshots in, but they are no longer buying in stock. They are lowballing on some of the part exchanges at the moment. If you offset that against some of the high used prices they're offering, it sits a little bit uncomfortably. So you really do need to do your research, I think, before you're buying at the minute, because they have so much used stock. They're not necessarily wanting to take the part exchanges off you. Now, that is just my view, that is just my opinion, but they have offered us an incredibly low part exchange when we were exploring trading in our tracker. So these are also a dealer with a large number of new Eldis that have landed on their forecourt too. Now, they had a lot of 2023 models, their Evolution specials left over from last year. They're still sitting there with discounts, as well as a big chunk, I'd probably say 50 plus new models have landed. You know, the money's been paid, they've got them in both their camper and their motorhome form. So they also prefer you to sell privately to a trader at the minute. They are actively encouraging that, and I think that again supports this view that they don't necessarily want more part exchanges sitting on a forecourt, because I just don't think they've got the room for them and don't necessarily want them. So if you are looking at Brownhills, there are some good deals to be had on new, but I would consider very carefully what you're looking at from their used market and check those prices. So another dealer we've taken a look at is Wonderhome. Now, this is the Wonderhome South Cave, not the one in Nottingley. This is South Cave near Hull. And they're offering up to £8,000 at the minute of some of their used motorhomes and campers, and they do have a large stock and a good selection. But there are some pricing challenges here at this dealer as well, and this comparables and where our dealers really pitching used prices at. For example, they've got a 2022, so a 2-year-old Swift Escape 694, pitched at just over 73,000. Now that puts it just £5,000 against a brand new 2024 model off the factory line that can be found from stock elsewhere across the UK right now, particularly with those Swift offers that seem to be out there. So pricing's a bit rich in some of the used stock, depending which dealer you look at, and I think this is a bit of the finger in the wind in knowing where to put it, and whether the used market is going to catch up at some point down the line, we don't know. But they have got Westphalia transit-based campers at Wonderhome. They're all discounted 2024 stock. They've got Voyagers from Swift, and they've got a Donmot from Bailey with up to £3,000 off. And they're offering £6,000 of the last of the line autograph models from Bailey, which are now coming in the 81.6 model at £82,000 instead of £88,000. So you can see these reductions coming down. So what about Donmot? Now, Donmot historically is known as the king of caravans, for those of you that are old enough to remember the adverts from the 80s. But interestingly, they are now running a very small selection of touring caravans. If you know Donmot, they are a big company, both for the tourers, motorhomes, statics, and running caravan parks on the east coast in Lincolnshire. But there are very few new caravans, very few used caravans. Now, whether he has spotted a trend there or something coming down the line, but their focus very much is on motorhomes in the touring side. And they do have lots of them, but they are selling lots of them. An indicator of this is if you look at their socials and you talk to them, their lead time, if they've got one in stock now, if you're buying it today, you're looking at the end of May, beginning of June for their workshops to turn around because they've got such a backlog of new vehicles going out. However, he's got some amazing offers. So if you are looking for a Naus motorhome or camper, there is up to £10,000 off some models. There is up to £8,000 off some eldest models, again motorhomes stroke campers, and they are throwing £7,000 off the last of the Bailey Autograph models in the 79 4i, 4T and 4F, and there's even £3,000 off a selection of Adamos they have in stock. So I can see why they're busy, and I can see why they are doing well at the moment and are offering some juicy discounts if you are looking. They're also an auto trail dealer, they're a Swift dealer, so they have a good selection. So that is a website, if you haven't looked at, is worth looking at because it is throwing some good deals out there. I'm going to talk about Perman Briggs briefly. They're over in the West Country Welsh borders. Again, not a dealer we've visited, but one we have looked at because of their stock and what they deal in. But also my little nibble, my little bite, if you like, on what's going on with Eldis. But for example, there, as an auto trail dealer, they have still got a 2023 last of the line auto trail tracker in the RB, which is the rear island bed sideways on. And that's with £5,000 off. You will struggle to find a 2023 new tracker now because the model range has been deleted, so that one's sitting around. They are another dealer that has a lot of eldest models. They've got them in quantity, they've got a lot of them, and they do have some 2023 stock left over. So this is a similar picture to what we're seeing at Brownhills as an eldest dealer. I've also seen it with Glossop. They've had all their eldest stock land as well. But apart from the tracker, there's no other evident discounts at that dealer, but there is a good oversupply of eldest and some discounts on kind of end of the line models. If you're in the Midlands, particularly the West Midlands, you will have known of Broadlane. Now Broadlane, again, is another dealer that's consolidated down to one site and have recently offloaded their Kenilworth site to Spinney. As a result, all their stock has shifted over to their Ulster site, where they've got up to, £4,000 off some Voyagers, Ascari and Carrera models from Swift, all new stock 2024, and there is up to £4,000 off some selected used motorhomes and campers that they've got on their site too. So Broadlane, another example of deals to be had on Swift. Again, this is what I'm saying, that's a trend coming through. There seems to be this £3,000-4,000 off sort of the list price of some Swifts, and that seemed to be across the piece. So this is what I'm saying, is there a little bit of re-leveling coming through here. And I guess also what we saw with the volume that was being churned out from our factory visit just a few weeks ago, I guess they've got a good supply of parts and such forth coming through, that maybe that's now righted in the manufacturing side. They've now got to just re-level what's going on in the dealer side in selling these vehicles. So that's something that I've noticed across them all, is these deals that are around on Swift right now. Now, SMC are another big motorhome dealer up in Newark. Now they deal in a whole range of motorhomes, from Pilottis through to the big tag axle A-class 200 grand plus motorhomes, so they offer a big range. But they are offering at the minute up to £4,000 off some new Naus models. So we've seen that elsewhere with Donmot. These aren't offering quite as juicy deal, but they're offering £4,000 off. And also with Weinsberg, Auto Sleepers and Pelotti, there are discounts on new models they have on the forecourt. But there's scarce discounts on used vehicles that they have right now. It all seems to be on the stock that they're sitting on as new that they've had to buy in. So this seems to be another trend coming through. Discounts are to be had on the stock they're sitting on that's new, and they will ultimately have to shift. So again, if you're interested there, they're based up in Newark. So I took a look at Simpsons over in East Anglia. Again, it's not one we have visited, but Simpsons again are offering some good discounts on 2023 stock. And again, we've got examples of Eldis kicking around, with one there particular £8,000 off a 150 AutoQuest model, which they're offering right now. There is up to 4k off some 2023 Auto Sleepers that they have. And across their used stock, there's a spattering of models with £2,000 savings right now. So there again, we've got Eldis popping up with stock kicking around. And we'll come back to that in the summary, I think, because it's a question I've got about what's next for Eldis and I guess consumer confidence in the Eldis brand, given some of the rumours that are kicking around. Chelston is a big dealer down in the southwest, and there is no evident savings on their used stock, but they do have a full forecourt. There are the same discounts kicking around as we've seen with the other dealers on the Swift, so £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 off some of their models, and they are again back to the 2023 stock that is still kicking around on forecourts. There is £4,000 off some of their Bursner models that are a hangover from the last model year. So if you're interested in a Bursner, I'm not seeing many deals on those, but Chelston do have them in stock, and they are reduced if you're prepared to take a 23 model unregistered. So some good deals to be had there on new coming through from Chelston. But what about smaller independents, the smaller dealers that are kicking around there? So I've taken a look at just a couple just to kind of explore this pattern, if you like, to the motorhome market right now. So I've looked at Fuller's. Now, David Fuller started this business 30 odd years ago up in Loudon, just down the road from the main Loudon's main dealer. And he deals just in used stock and always has done. He does caravans and motorhomes. But they are used only, but they're still advertising to buy stock in. And I guess that's because he's only got 10 or 11 on the forecourt right now. So he does need a flow of vehicles to sell. But there are no discounts there at all. But what I would say, it seems to be fair pricing. Now, a similar picture is with the Caravan Place. Now, some of you might know Mark from the Caravan Place. He's got his YouTube channel that's quite popular and very informative. And has recently moved into motorhomes in the last 12 months or so. And again, he's another dealer that's probably got 10 or 11 motorhomes in stock. They are used, but he does have a good mix of recently arrived and some that he's had a little while. But again, no discounts, but I would say a dealer that has got fair pricing with the comparables I've been tracking with Auto Trader in what he has got as in his forecourt. So I guess the small dealers are pitching well because they've got stock they will need to sell and have a turnover. But it is worth looking at some of those independent places as well as the main dealer chains. So what is the summary of all this? My ramblings here really are just to get a feel of what's going on in the market, and I kind of wanted to follow up the fact that we'd had some doom and gloom in the administration of some big businesses, but I wanted to see if there was some optimism in the market out there too, just to give a bit of balance. And I think what we are seeing is there is an oversupply, probably of new and used hitting the market, oversupply of new coming into the dealers, and possibly an oversupply of used coming into the market, either being sold privately or traders. I guess the higher APR percentage rates on finance will be affecting some buyers. I mean, over the last couple of years, it's gone up from a 4.9 to a 7.9 to 11.9 in some cases, particularly if you're using things like Black Horse finance. They're kind of like fixed rate, but that is significantly higher on your monthlies and your overall cost if you are going down that route. As I've alluded to throughout this, we're seeing that some used values are possibly a bit sporadic, a bit inconsistent, and if you really are going to look at that market from dealers, I really would suggest doing your homework and spending some time researching comparables from across the market before you commit. You might save yourself some money there by finding a comparable vehicle elsewhere. And with that, we're seeing, as we're entering talks around potential models, which we will share with you in time when we've made that decision, part exchange values are wildly variable. There is a sign that some dealers aren't wanting to pay over the odds to get stock in anymore. So again, this is my view of re-leveling. And there is a variability for your vehicle. So our tracker, in talking to 3 dealers for 3 comparable deals for our next motorhome, there was a £10,000 range between the offers we got for our part exchange, which is not insignificant, but also shows a little bit of that finger in the wind about what they really want to give you. And some dealers have more than enough stock. I gave you that example of Brownhills. You know, Loudhams is another one. They've now got a very large stock in their forecourt again. So some are just not buying in to fill their supply chain anymore. So I don't know. What does that mean for the market? Do we need, not regulation, but do we need a bit like a Glass's guidebook, some sort of tracking for values, and not just relying on Auto Trader and poking around? It's a tricky one. I think most of it will be down to buyer beware, buyer do your research, buyer get on all the websites, get on Auto Trader, and really look carefully at what is on the market, because there is now good choice. I think there are some other things we need to consider too. So demographics, I still think there's more to do with this in terms of who the buyers now are. And I think some of the manufacturers are starting to cotton onto this. You saw the Endeavour arrive from Bailey, closely followed by the Swift Trekker, 2 incredibly stunning camper vehicles, appealing to a very different market. But you have got the other end of the spectrum, an ageing style, if you like, ageing layouts, look and feel, and particularly if we talk about some of the auto trails and some of the auto sleepers, that they've got demographically challenging designs that perhaps suit a certain part of the market, but not others. And us personally, we find the auto trail sleepers a bit too old-fashioned and a bit too twee. Is that why there's a lot of those for sale? If you have a look around, as I've been doing in this research, you will see that there are a lot of them available. Now, the other demographic challenge there brings you around to your licensing, because a lot of models are still above the 3.5 tonne and require you to get your C1 training and licence done. And that still is an issue there, both as a cost for some people to go through that training, but also their confidence in driving a bigger vehicle. Changes have been made in the caravan world, in towing larger caravans. We just seem to haven't yet caught up in the motorhome space. So there's an issue there. So, you know, when you look at a stock of motorhomes on some of these sites that are over the 3.5 tonne, you are going to limit the newer, younger market coming through if they haven't got that licensability. So there's a whole space there needs addressing. What else? I think the manufacturers, not just the dealers, are facing challenges here. We've had costs, inflation, rising, going on. That's all been passed down the chain. Maybe now the dealers are finding that level because they are manufacturing more, so therefore they can supply more. Is that why the dealers are giving the discount now? The market's got to catch up in some way. The other thing I can't avoid is the eldest situation. We all know that Erwinheimer have made redundant, is it around 200 people up at their site. I can see that they've got a lot of their models out on these current Peugeot cabs that soon won't be available anymore. And they've got big plans for their 60th anniversary and a relaunch of models for 2025. So I'm hoping that they've got these out there. But talk of redundancies and cutbacks in a big player in the caravan and motorhome world, I'm not sure I'd be wanting to put my 60, 70, 80,000 pounds into an eldest motorhome right now if there's the potential that that manufacturer might not be there in the future. Now that isn't doom and gloom again, that's not scaremongering, it's just a pragmatic view that would you put your money there if you didn't have a warranty to back it up in time. You all might have your different views on that, but I know it's not something I would choose to do necessarily. I'd want to know what's going on in that space. And the Peugeot cabs generally, they are dated. You see it in the autographs that are now running out, in the auto sleepers, in the eldest. When you look that we've had a couple of years of the Ducatos that have had the more modern dash and the electronic dash and the updated features, they just look really dated. And why would you step into one of those when there are more appealing cabs now available? So an interesting space. Now, I hope you found this useful. It's my ramblings on an analysis of the market, and I'm hoping that it just gives you a sense of there is some light at the end of the tunnel, I think, in that prices are rebalancing, re-leveling. I don't think we're hitting a crash or a bubble bursting. I think we're in that process now of it getting back to the market that it once was, and that's what I really hope it will be. Once again, thanks for all the likes, the recent subscribers, absolutely amazing. I think we're almost at 250 subscribers. It would be great if I could get a few more of you on board. I can then spend more time churning out some of these videos for you. But a big thank you to you all. It really is very much appreciated and very heartwarming to know that the comments I've received are proving that this is useful. So our next video for you will be around our tow car, our little Fiat 500, and then we've got our spring Maybank holiday weekend coming up soon where we'll be heading off to Norfolk. So lots more to look forward to in our future vlogs. So once again, thank you, and I'll see you next time.